Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is a beautiful Thursday morning here in suburban Chicago, April 1st. Happy April 1st. Welcome to April. Spring is upon us. Spring has sprung. And boy, it is chilly. It is brisk. That is the word I used, and I stand by it. It's cold. But it is April 1st. And so even though I'm not publishing this till April 2nd, I'm excitedly recording it today at the top of the month to talk to you about the top of the stack. That's my air horn sound. I know you appreciate it. So today I am going to be sharing with you, as always, the results of my March month of gameplays and introducing you to my April month of gameplays. There we are. I will also remind you that the phrase top of the stack I borrowed liberally from the much beloved and sadly inactive podcast, the Podcast of Nonsensical Gamers. I miss those folks. So this month, March 2021, was a very robust month for me in terms of games. And I will say it's because my online asynchronous gaming has picked up dramatically. I've had a number of games be initiated both on Board Game Arena and Boîte à Jeux, and even Yukata is seeing more games than usual. And so I'm getting a lot of games in. It's really delightful. I think I have like 2 or 3 concurrent running games of innovation, and at least 1 game of 7 Wonders going all the time, among other things. So I'm really enjoying getting to explore these games in more depth, even at an asynchronous pace. So in that regard, I had 72 plays of games this month, 40 different games, making my year total 175 plays of 77 games. Yowza, that is a lot of games, and I'm really pleased to be playing this many. Other things I'm not necessarily doing as well on. My shelf of opportunity at the beginning of last month was 43 games deep. This month it is 44 games deep. Oh, geez. It went up 1. My collection size reduction project is still doing very badly. At the beginning of the year, I started with 425 games in my collection. I'm up to 443. Geez Louise, Brendan, come on. This month, my most played game in person on the table was Honey Buzz with 4 plays. And my most played game online was Innovation with 11 plays. Yowza, that's a lot of plays. Top of the stack report. Last month, I was not pleased with my top of the stack performance from February, so I just rolled the whole thing over into March. No, actually, January I rolled the whole thing over into February and did very poorly. So in March, I rejiggered it, I picked all new games, and I still only got 1 game played. Dang it! Come on! I'm just not that, I haven't been as committed to the top of the stack games as I should be, which, is part of the reason that I'm not doing well on my shelf of opportunity, because the top of the stack is the whole point of that is to get to the shelf of opportunity. I gotta get back on this, people. I think April is my chance. With regard to the top of the stack, I did manage to play Nussfjord, and that's it. I did not play Harry Potter Hogwarts Cup, although we were real close to playing it last night, but it just didn't get played. I did not get to try They Who Were 8, and I did not get to try Science and Seance Society. Dang it. So I decided to take a new approach for April. To begin with, back at the top of the list is going to be Harry Potter Hogwarts Cup. Like I said, we just about played this. I learned the rules. We're ready to go. It's going to get played this weekend, so definitely leave that on the list. But then for the other 3 games, I think that I'm going to go thematic and try to get all my Titanic games played. Now I have 4 different games themed around the Titanic. I have SOS Titanic, which I got and played last year. I have Titanic, the board game, which was released around the time that the movie in 1997 was released. It's not a great game, and I'm not looking forward to playing it, but I do have it. I have The Sinking of the Titanic, which is a game from the 1970s, which looks absolutely bad, but hilariously delightful. And then last year for Christmas, I got Raise the Titanic, based on the Clive Cussler novel, which is also a kind of weird novelty game. So I have 3 different Titanic games that I haven't played. I did not get, last year they released a Titanic-themed game branded after the Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet movie. And every review I read just said it was awful. Like really, and so I did not buy that. I feel like I probably should have, given my enthusiasm for the theme, but I couldn't bring myself to. So I've decided that my top of the stack this month, I'm going to play all 3 of those Titanic games. April is, of course, the month of the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, April 14th. And so I thought I would try to get those played kind of, in memory of the sinking of the Titanic. That's a thing to think about, isn't it? So that's my top of the stack for April. All right, let's just jump into some broad sweeping conversation about the month's plays. I did get to play 6 new games this month. I talked about those in 2 different Shooting from the Hip episodes. The Ruins of Mars, Doctor Who Keys to the TARDIS, and Honey Buzz I talked about in the first Shooting from the Hip episode. And then Nussfjord, Costa Rica, and The Crew I talked about yesterday in my second Shooting from the Hip episode. All 6 games were enjoyable. I'm glad I played them. A couple of them I'll be going back to a lot. You can tell Honey Buzz was a hit with me since I've played it 4 times already. Having played it 4 times though, I will say, it definitely feels like the kind of game that is kind of samey. And I don't have a problem with games that are samey. A lot of my favorite games are games that kind of feel the same each time you play them, but they are a fun tactical puzzle. So Azul is kind of samey. When you play Azul each time, you're just playing Azul. It doesn't change a lot. Now you can change the board a little for a little variety. When I play Sagrada and I add in some of those expansions, yeah, it adds a little variety, but come on, it's not a dramatically different experience. And I think Honey Buzz is going to fall into that category. When I play Chocolate Factory, the Dunstan and Gilbert engine, I don't know what you'd call it, engine building game, economic game. That one's pretty much the same every time you play it. I don't have a problem with that. I enjoy games that are that way because I have a big collection. So I don't need the game to be dramatically different each time I play it. And Honey Buzz definitely falls into that realm. It's going to be roughly the same each time you play it. But it is a really interesting tactical puzzle, and I'm pleased that I have it and looking forward to playing it more. Nussfjord is probably the other game from this month that I'm most excited to dig into deeper. That's a game that I think will have a lot of variety, especially if it continues to pique my interest and I pick up some of the alternate decks so that we get different buildings available. There's a lot to be said for the variety that comes from those cards. So Uwe Rosenberg knows how to make variety through cards. The other 2 metrics I do for tracking different kinds of plays are new expansions and out of the dust games. And I will say, it looks like I got 0 of either of those. I did not play any games that I hadn't played for a year or more, and I did not play any new expansions. So that's kind of weird to me, a bit crazy, but nonetheless, still, it is what it is. So on to the next part, the Family 10x10 Challenge. Last month I lamented that we really needed to pick up the pace if we didn't want to be killing ourselves toward the end of the year to get it done. And so I'm proud to say in March, nope, we didn't do shit. In fact, it's worse now than it was, because at the end of February, I believe we were at 14% complete. And I think that we've played 2 games on the list since then, which means that we are 16% complete now. That's not good. That's not enough. We have a long way to go on the Family 10x10 Challenge. That said, we did play Victoriana last night and had a good time with it. What an interesting puzzle that game was. We did squeak out a win, and then we figured out that we in fact had played a bunch of things wrong. And then we figured out that, I noticed a couple different rules that we played wrong. Some of the rules were beneficial to us, so we missed them and that hurt us. Some of the rules were detrimental to us, so we missed them and it helped us. If I had to say, I think it was all a wash. I think the way that we hurt ourselves and the way that we helped ourselves overlapped, such that they kind of canceled each other out. It did feel really good to win though, because we really had to push to get the end of the game in place. And I've been thinking about this with regard to co-op games. I don't know what you'd call this moment, but in a fun co-op experience where everybody's working together to solve the puzzle of the game, there's often a moment, and in Pandemic it often happens 2 rounds out, where you realize you have about 8 turns left, 10 turns, something like that, and you got to figure out how to win the game. And in Victoriana, this is what happened to us. We figured out we had 5 rounds left, which meant we had 10 turns left. 2 of us had 2 turns left, and 2 of us had 3 turns left. And in that time, we had to do X amount of things, and we figured out everything we needed to do. Then we started playing, and one of the things didn't go the way we wanted, but then another thing went the way we wanted, double. And it was just this fantastic back and forth that ended up with us winning the game at the very end, and it was awesome. It was really good. And so it was a really fun play of Victoriana, and makes me excited to play the other 7. As we try out different heroes, try out different player counts, I'm looking forward to continuing to explore this really interesting puzzle game with cool use of classic characters. It really does feel like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the board game, and I enjoyed that. By the way, I played as Jekyll this time, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde is, of course, quite a beast and causes a lot of trouble when he comes out. Otherwise, not much to report on that front. 7 Wonders and Victoriana were the only games that we advanced. I'm really thinking Anachrony, once I can meet with people in person, that's a game that will climb back up the ranks. But until then, I'm not seeing it get a lot of play. Although I think next Wednesday I am going to play a round of Anachrony with my friend Paul. So that'll be fun. Next on, the Organic 10x10 Challenge continues. This is basically just looking to see if I individually manage a 10x10. Not including the games that are on the Family 10x10 Challenge. So those 10 games are excluded. Do I still make a 10x10? In that regard, my H index is 5 currently, including Innovation, Welcome to, Through the Ages, Armadora, and Gone Sean Clever. I will call out that with the exception of Welcome to, all of those games have been entirely online. Welcome to I have played twice in person, but the other 3 plays have been online, or maybe 4 plays online and 1 in person. So I think that 10 for 10 is going to end up being a 10 for 10 asynchronous, but that's okay. It's still fun. So that's where I am on the H index. What else? I'm happy to share with you my 52 game challenge. This one is going really well. I think I am keeping up with the pace I need to in order to do well and leave myself some room to complete some of the harder challenges at the end of the year. As a reminder, the 52 game challenge is a Board Game Geek list consisting of 52 gameplay challenges of varying difficulty and obscurity, in which players check off on the honor system when they complete different challenges with the goal of completing all 52 by the end of the year. So far, I'm making good progress. Coming into March, I had done 12 sessions, and leaving March, I now have 18. So I checked off another 6 requirements on the list, and that is great. So here are the 6 that I checked off. Number 7 on the list, play a game on Board Game Geek ranked worse than 10,000. This is tricky because I told myself that I was not allowed to play a game that isn't ranked at all. I did have a couple games that I played that aren't ranked at all, but once a game is ranked, it climbs pretty fast. That said, I did play this month Ruins of Mars, which is ranked 12,629. So that is a game that is ranked low enough that I was able to play it and count it. Honestly, probably Costa Rica fits that mold too, but whatever. Play a game with a lot of air in the box. This is an interesting one, right? A lot of air in the box means literally that the components just don't take up very much room. The archetype for this model, I would say, the biggest one is Machi Koro. Machi Koro is terribly wasteful for space. The box is huge. You get this tiny little deck of cards and 2 dice and a few tokens. Like, the game literally could fit in a Magic the Gathering deck box, and instead it comes in a small square box the size of the yellow games like Big Book of Madness. It's way enormous. In fact, when we had Machi Koro and I bought 2 expansions for it, I was able to fit both expansions still in the original box without even taking the insert out. Like, they fit in just in the same card tray. Ridiculous. Now, one of the things about box size that's so challenging is box size is one of the ways that Americans, at least, figure out what a game is about. And I think games that are very difficult, take up a lot of table space, and come in a small box sometimes suffer for that. I think that's not as true now as it used to be. Number 29, play a language independent game. I decided Costa Rica was that. All the pieces are just use icons and symbols and pictures, and you do need the rule book, I guess, for language, but that's it. In fact, the game is language independent in that it comes with a rule book in English and German, and you can play with the pieces either way. So I'd call that language independent. I guess I also played Quarto this month, which is a game that it's a sort of abstract table game, so I guess that would count as well if I felt like I needed to justify myself. I don't, but whatever. Play a game with a character who has a disability. Well, just this month, I played Arch Ravels, the knitting fabric craft game from my friends over at XYZ Game Labs. One of the playable characters in the game is Derek, who's a young man in a wheelchair. So that would be a character with a disability. There you go. Number 32, play a game with 2 articles in the title. So again, this one, relatively late play in March, but I think it fits. The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9. The Crew, The Quest. There's your 2 articles. The. Now, it didn't say 2 different articles, so I'm counting it. And finally, play a crowdfunded game. You do not need to have backed it. So I went with Honeybuzz. Honeybuzz is, of course, a popular game from Elf Creek Games, and I'm sort of, having played Honeybuzz now, I'm sort of sad that I missed Merchants of the Dark Road. I bet that's going to be a really good game as well. But yeah, it was a crowdfunded game and very popular. So there we are. Those are the 6 games that I played on the 52 game challenge. I'm now up to 18 out of 52. If I continue at this pace, I should finish in November, or maybe even before that. What's 6 times 9 is 54, right? Yep. In which case, I will finish in September. That seems like a good plan, because chances are I won't be able to continue at this pace. As the challenges get more difficult, I'm going to have to be more deliberate. Probably won't get 6 a month the whole time. So on to games added to my collection this month. I added 6 games and played 5 of them. Costa Rica, Honeybuzz, Nussfjord, The Crew, I have already talked about. Carcassonne and Quarto were last-minute additions. I stopped into a Goodwill and I found both of those games. I had to pay $5 whole for Quarto, but that's an excellent game and I was glad to do it. Carcassonne was marked at $2, but it had an orange tag and it happened to be half-price orange tag day or something, so I paid $1 for Carcassonne. I also found a very nice copy of Forbidden Island that was missing only the rulebook. So I bought that and printed out the rulebook and gave it to a neighbor who definitely will enjoy that. So that brings my collection size up to 443. So what did you play this month? What's going to be on the top of your stack next month? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know. Reach out to me, Brendan at Rattlebox Games, or Wombat929 on Board Game Geek, or on any of the asynchronous platforms, Board Game Arena, Yukata.de, or Boitajou. Thanks for joining me today. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.